Hello, hello. Thank you for joining me in my studies today. I read a book a week and externalize my studies to the best of my ability by sharing vocal readings of passages that are most prominent to me. This is week 20 and my second day of reading from Alan Watts' Cloud Hidden, Whereabouts Unknown, a mountain journal. This section of the book emphasizes the Tao, Wuwei, and ecstasy, and gives us vivid descriptions of these phenomena in action during the countercultural movement.
Page 25. On the one hand, you do not and actually cannot do anything. It is all happening as the stream flows of itself. On the other hand, you yourself are no other than this stream. However much you may feel yourself to be some distinct entity in the stream, occasionally controlling it, though mostly driven helplessly along. But the paradox is resolved when you realize that it would be impossible to experience the subjective and voluntary aspect of experience without the contrast of the objective and involuntary. Like all pairs of opposites, these are two poles of a single process, and our mistake is to identify the reality of self with one only, with the voluntary. Surely it is easy to see that all voluntary action is based on processes that are not voluntary at all, on the circulation of blood and the operation of neural circuits. Page 26. Yoga is sometimes said to be contemplation of the navel, a figure of speech for shifting one's center of gravity to a point which transcends the dualism of ego and non-ego, since the one cannot exist without the other. Page 31. Tao signifies the energy of the universe as a way, current, course, or flow, which is at once intelligent and spontaneous, but not personal like a Western god. It would be absurd to worship or pray to the Tao, because it's your own true self, the very energy and patterning of your bones, muscles, and nerves. Lao Tzu's first statement about it is that it cannot be defined, for the simple reason that you cannot make what is basically you and basically real an object of knowledge. Page 38. Ecstasy is the sensation of surrendering to vibrations and sometimes to insights that take you out of your so-called self. By and large, self, as a direct sensation, is nothing more than chronic neuromuscular tension, a habitual resistance to the pulsing of life, which may explain why non-ecstatic people are correctly described as uptight. Ecstasy is something higher or further out than ordinary pleasure, and few hippies realize that its achievement requires a particular discipline and skill that is comparable to the art of sailing. We do not resist the vibrations, pulses, and rhythms of nature, just as the yachtsman does not resist the wind, but he knows how to manage his sails and therefore can use the wind to go wherever he wishes. The art of life, as we see it, is navigation. Page 40. Pure ecstasy cannot therefore be long endured, for as the Bible says, no man can see God and live. But frequent plunges into ecstasy transform one's normal consciousness. The everyday world becomes luminous and transparent. The chronic neuromuscular tension against the world disappears, and thus one loses the sensation of carrying one's body around like a load. You feel light, almost weightless, realizing that you are one with a planet that is just falling at ease through space. It's something like the happy, released, energetic feeling one gets after a splendid experience of lovemaking in the middle of the day. On page 49, Alan Watts gives a vivid description of the behavioral changes that can be observed during the countercultural movement. He does this through the literary framework of storytelling about the work of psychiatrists Roseman and Kotowari. In the case that you'd like to look that up, I think that was worth mentioning. I'll begin here. They stopped looking for rocks on which to stand and foundations for building their lives Dropping all such metaphors of fortification and stony solidity, they realize that the world, the vibration system, is more airy and liquid than solid, and they reacted to it as swimmers, sailors, and airmen, rather than as landlubbers. They found security in letting go, rather than in holding on, and in so doing developed an attitude toward life that might be called psychophysical judo. Nearly 25 centuries ago, the Chinese sages Lao Tzu and Chuang-Tzu had called it Wuwei, which is perhaps best translated as action without forcing. Present time became more important than future time, on the reasoning that there is no point in making plans for the future if you can't fully enjoy their results when they in turn become part of the present. By and large, we stopped rushing and found that with less haste, we had more speed, since rushing sets up a whole multitude of antagonistic vibrations. Page 58, a continuing vivid description of the behavioral changes during the countercultural movement. As soon as we freed ourselves from the mirage of hurrying time, which was nothing more than the projection of our own impatience, we were alive again, as in childhood, to the miracles and ecstasies of ordinary life. You would be astounded at the beauty of our homes, our furniture, our clothes, and even our pots and pans, for we have the time to make most of these things ourselves, and the sense of reality to see that they, rather than money, constitute genuine wealth. Page 59, this is in reference to the work of British architect Douglas Harding, who wrote that the only directly perceptual content of the head, especially through the eyes and ears, which are directed outward from the head, is everything except the head. Once this obvious but overlooked fact becomes clear, you no longer regard your head as the center of consciousness. You cease to be a central thing upon which experience is banging, scratching, and being recorded. Thus, the center of awareness becomes one with all it perceives. You and the world become identical, and this disappearance of oneself is, to say the least, a blissful release.